today I have Jess with me from the Virgin entity. She is the Internal Communications Director. Really great to have you here, Jess. Thank you so much for taking your time. I also have Brian Bacon, who is the founder and executive chairman of Oxford Leadership. So perhaps let's start with you, Jess. Really would be great to hear more about your history with Virgin Media and especially your role that the internal comms play in Virgin Media. I think too, knowing just what purpose have done for your team, for the company as well. It would be great to hear.
Perfect. Thanks, Marlon, and thank you for having me, both of you. Hi, everybody. So, yeah, as Marlon said, I'm Jess. I'm Internal Comms Director at Virgin Media. But my journey started really within Virgin in 2010. So a decade ago. There you go. It's gone quickly. And I started off as a marketing assistant, having come from a business that was very suited and booted. And I was fortunate enough to end up working as part of the Virgin Group. And as soon as I became part of Virgin, it was like the shackles were off. Suddenly, from being kind of put in a pigeonhole and kind of very much doing the things that you imagine in a suited and booted environment, I was suddenly able to be myself. And that's something that's kind of I've taken with me, I guess, through my career, and something that's very, very important to understand. Who am I? And therefore, what can I give and what value can I add to the people that I work with and the businesses that I work for? So over the years, I've worked my way up from always in marketing and always in brand. So I worked my way up to be a marketing exec, brand manager. But it was when I became head of brand and marketing and through being part of Virgin as a whole and meeting the people that I met and some of the most inspiring people that I'd met doing incredible things, I fell in love with the concept of a brand being like a human being. So if you think of a brand, if you think of a human, we have our tone of voice, we have values, we behave in certain ways. And the thing that really, really struck me about Virgin was I knew exactly who they were. I knew that I want to go down the pub with them, if that was even a thing ever again, for a drink. I really understood how to turn, and what the concept of was turning something that was essentially a logo and a group of people into something that was very meaningful for people. And that's where I got into just working through people experience. And I was fortunate enough to join Virgin Media last year as internal comms director. So yeah, I kind of worked my way up from 2010 and worked my way up from the bottom to kind of lead this fantastic team that I've got now, and also help our business kind of navigate some of the crazy times that we're in at the moment, which is absolutely fascinating, high-paced, and at times somewhat terrifying as well.
Jess, these really are incredibly challenging times for every business, and I know a lot of the people that are watching here today have tuned in specifically because, I mean, it is a paradox and it's a dilemma, at a time when everybody is scrambling, just to achieve their goals and survive in many cases. Is there a trade-off that you have to make between, being purposeful and on performance? And why people are so excited about having you on, and specifically around a brand like Virgin, is that I think people understand the what. They get the why and the what of purpose very, very clearly. There's so much science, there's so much data on how purpose-driven organizations outperform their peers. They have higher levels of engagement, they're more innovative, they're more agile, they're more able to be resilient and endure. The question is how. And I think, how does an organization manage to maintain a purpose-driven approach to their business during times when many others are sort of abandoning that and say, let's do what we need to do to be able to just kind of hit our performance targets. And I think it would be great to hear a little bit about your journey and how important internal comms is. I mean, just the very fact that you are, you know, in very few other organizations of your size and scale would internal comms be reporting directly into the CEO. That within itself, I mean, I think gives a clue to how important people and culture and communications are in an organization like Virgin. But perhaps you could just talk a little bit about that, about you know, how purpose plays out and how it gets embedded in Virgin Media.
Okay, so lots of questions in there, so I'm going to try and take them off one at a time, Brian. So if I talk about internal communications first, which is quite an unusual, like not many businesses, to your point, put internal communications and communications generally, but especially internal, really at the heart of who they are as an organization. And the thing that I really valued and really loved and grasped around through the role that I have now is that we really get to shape the culture to really tell our story as a business. But that all starts with your leadership team, and ultimately it all starts with your CEO. So I feel very, very fortunate that I get to work with someone as incredible as Lutz every day. And he, right from the word go, when he became CEO and I joined the business at a very similar time. So we set about creating the story that we wanted to tell, how we wanted to get back to our Virgin roots. We'd kind of lost our way a little bit, almost our purpose, like our direction. And we really wanted to help our people really understand where we were going, but also why we were going there. And so last year, we really set about creating that clear strategic narrative, really understanding where we wanted to go, how we wanted to start to embrace, as I said, getting back to those Virgin roots, really focusing back on our people and our customers and embracing this concept of team play. So that was at the heart of everything that we now do, was this concept of everybody working together to really focus on achieving one thing together. And I guess my team's challenge as I'd call it a strategic internal comms team, was to really try and bring that to life for our people, so that we could take what was written down on paper and really bring that to life, so you could almost feel it in the business. So that's why it was so important for us. Internal comms has been so important for the business, because we've really had to bring quite a disparate organisation together to really focus as how do we get to where we're going, to really focus on our people and customers, but in a single direction, and really galvanise our people around that. And it's great to know where you're going, but you also have to know why you're going there. And just before I joined, a huge piece of work had been done across the organisation, which was about developing why Virgin Media exists. What was our meaning, our kind of fundamental why. And that was all about building connections that really matter. And on the surface of it, it's very obvious. We put cable under the ground, fibre under the ground, and, building connections that really matter. Yeah, it kind of does what it says on the tin. But when you get under the skin of it, this is about connecting with each other. It's about connecting with our customers. It's about connecting with communities. But fundamentally, it's about connecting our people to each other and to why we go about doing what we do. And then the really matter piece is almost the most important piece, which is, I get to work in an amazing brand with amazing people who have wonderful ideas every day. So one of our challenges has been, how do we really focus on what really matters? What is it that's really going to move the dial? How do we really know that out of the 10,000 ideas we had today, the 2 we're going to take are the things that are really going to land us achieving and really driving our kind of journey to the North Star? So everything for us starts with purpose. And so that's probably the role of my team and how we came to have a purpose. But how do you really embed it, I think, was ultimately your question, Brian. What does that look like? And I'll tell you a story, because fundamentally the Leading with Purpose program that that Brian ran is running across Virgin Media has been integral to it. But I'll tell you a story of something that I hadn't seen before I joined Virgin Media, and it was last year. And we were talking. I won't say what we were talking about. We were in the exec team. And I was in the same room as everybody, and somebody had come to pitch some commercial, some commercial thing that had lots of zeros at the end of it, and literally stopped the meeting and said, "We're asking ourselves the wrong question here. We need to ask ourselves, what are we going to do that's really going to build connections that really matter? Is the decision that we're about to make going to drive team play? Is fundamentally what we are going to do going to deliver what we have set out and why we to achieve as a business and why we exist?" And I'd never been in a meeting where literally it was just stopped partway through. And it wasn't about taking necessarily what on paper looked like a commercial decision or a financial decision. It was about stopping it and saying, actually, we need to reframe the question that we're asking ourselves. And I would like you to come back, and then we can look at it as a true rounded commercial recommendations or options and recommendations. And no matter what happens, purpose starts with leadership. And it's about showing up and role modeling what that looks like. And that's great to have a chief executive officer who is completely supportive and completely gets it. But he also has a team, and they have teams, and we're a large business. There's more than 12,000 of us. So how is it then, I think was your question, Brian, around really embedding that through the business? Because not everybody was in that room of 10 people like I was. And it's not the kind of story that you could necessarily just go out and tell. So we set about looking at how could we really start to bring our purpose to life. And if I'm honest, it's probably communications, really driving culture, and how we could get our leaders at every level to start thinking about that. And Brian, fundamentally, that's where Leading with Purpose comes in, because one of the things, I'm wearing this little badge, by the way, that says, I don't know if you can see it, but that says me, we. And in order for us to really bring the business's purpose to life as leaders, we also have to understand our own purpose. And so you introduced and introduced to me specifically, as well as many of the leadership team, this concept of how we could really go through a program that enabled us to explore what it was that drove us, why we got up out of bed in the morning, what drove us, what gave us that drive and fire, alongside really exploring what the business's purpose was and how those two aligned. And so that's one of the main ways in which we've done that, which is through leadership.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Perhaps,
Fantastic.
Brian, leading into that, perhaps you could just tell us a little bit more about the program that we ran together with Jess' team this summer, the Leading with Purpose program.
Let me do that. But if I may, Marlon, I just want to touch on what I feel is so incredibly powerful about, Jess, what you've talked about and what Virgin has done. I mean, over the years, we started talking about the need to be purpose-driven, probably around 25 years ago, long before it was particularly popular. Now it's out there in the public domain. There are a lot of organizations that are now kind of getting it, and it's not just around, it's not just around the performance aspect, but around, in an environment where Black Lives Matter, where social exclusion and inclusion and the divisiveness in the political sphere, it tends to be ripping people apart. Something needs to be done to be able to bring people together. And so the interpretation that many people have when you say a company is purpose-driven is that there is a purpose in society that is higher, and that's absolutely true. But there are very, very clearly, anybody that's looked at organizations that are purpose-driven, they find that there are 4 fundamental pillars of being purpose-driven. Like no other company, I think, that I have seen in certainly not in the telecommunications space. Virgin Media, ticks these 4 boxes. So the first pillar is a sense of purpose and direction. So it provides direction about the things which are most important. It gives clarity on the few things that truly do matter. So knowing where you're going, having a sense of direction is the first pillar. And being able to connect individuals up to what's most important to the individual and how that connects to what's most important to the company, what's most important to the team, and what's most important that this company represents as a way of serving something beyond products, profits, and self-aggrandizement within society. That's the first pillar, which, Virgin, and, it wasn't just Virgin Media. Richard Branson totally grabbed that and built purpose into the brand a long time ago. So the foundations for that are already there. The second pillar, which you succeed in doing, and it's one of the reasons I think why internal comms is so critical in this process and in any organization. The second pillar is a sense of belonging, because you can have a sense of direction simply by putting up goals and metrics and scorecards. That's not going to bring the organization to life. A powerful purpose creates a sense of belonging. This is who I am. This is what I belong to. This is my tribe. And what you talked about with team play exactly leads to that. Creating a sense of team, a sense of tribe that's about fun. And how typical of Virgin that you would make this fun. It's not teamwork, it's team play. We have fun. I mean, you tick that box so powerfully. The third box is around why communications is the third box is around story and around storytelling. The third pillar of being purpose-driven is the stories which you tell and the stories which customers tell about you, the stories which are told within the organization around what used to be the water cooler or the bar after work. Do people talk about, how financially adept we are? Or do we tell stories about how proud we are about serving customers and making them connected? And so there's a great story you told about Lutz in the execcom meeting about, look, let's just stop this and talk about what's really matters. It's those stories that truly matter. And the dimension of story that has greatest impact that you have done inside Virgin is connecting the personal story of an individual to the story of the team and creating and mapping those two together. And then the fourth pillar is so embedded in your purpose, the purpose of Virgin Media, building connections that really matter. The fourth pillar is connectedness. It's about how I experience myself to be connected to everything else. How does consumer connect to digital? How does a network connect to business? How does internal comms connect to HR? And it is that holistic connectedness which is so challenging for most organizations. And in that, clarity of purpose acts as a means of being able to connect all different parts together. So around that, ticking those 4 boxes of the 4 pillars, I really do feel that what you've done in Virgin Media is absolutely exemplary to it. To talk about leading with purpose more essentially, what you've succeeded to do there, which is something that we began with the executive committee, is an interwoven, like a double helix connecting me and we around very, very critical questions. Where have I come from? Where have we come from? What are my strengths and work-ons? What are our strengths and work-ons as a team? What's my purpose and what's our purpose? What's my values? What's our values? What's my vision for myself into the future? And what's our vision for ourselves in the future? And doing that in an integrated fashion across the teams in the business is what has you've succeeded in enabling. So I love your little badge there around around me and we. It's the perfect expression of it. And so we kind of, without going into kind of the straw man and the process outline of Leading with Purpose program, that's kind of the philosophical framework and the explanation of the process. But I'd be really curious to understand what your experience personally has been in kind of running this with your own team.
So I think the experience, I think Me We is also the shortest poem, isn't it, in English, in history, which is from Muhammad Ali as well, which is one of the things that I really like. And for me, I was able to understand both my peers. So I've done this, I've been through your program a couple of times, both with my team and also with our exec team kind of leaders. So for me, it was really understanding myself and having that time that we never have. You know, time is like a new currency, isn't it? So having that time to reflect on what was my story, what was the story that I wanted to tell fundamentally, what was at the core of me, you know, what were my values, really think about those. Was I able to show up every day, and how was I going to do that in a way that really brought the best out of not just me, but the people around me? And being able to tangibly link that with and understand that in everybody around. Like, so we were able to, so if I talk about my team, it was amazing hearing their personal stories. So their stories, the story that they were telling, their values, the reason why they got out of bed in the morning, what it was that really drove them. And you build a connection, and you talked about that so perfectly. And it is all about building connections, of course, that really matter. But that's what this did, which was we were able to build connections with each other on a much deeper level than we would have done if we'd just gone on a course about understanding what Virgin Media's purpose was. And through that, built trust, it built respect, it built connectedness, and it enabled us to really understand what the support networks that each of us needed to be at our best, and how if one of us was having a rubbish day or we were over-indexing in a certain behaviour, we could call it out, but in a way that wasn't about calling out about the person. It was about, hey, I'm here, I'm your teammate. That we talked about team play. Well, actually, yeah, of course we need to have fun together as a team. In fact, that's probably the most important thing. But teamship is also about being there to support each other. And for me as a team, that's what it's really brought us. It's brought an understanding of each other and the different superpowers almost that each of us have. We're so different, we're so diverse, and rather than seeing that as a threat, we need to see that as something which actually binds us together, that makes us stronger, not weaker. And fundamentally that then rolls up into understanding, well, how then does our role as a team, my role individually, how does that then ladder up to what we are here to do for Virgin Media and a business and a brand that I love, and that all of my team are completely passionate about supporting it to achieve where we are going as an organisation. But we have to start with ourselves first. You can't just expect people to follow a purpose unless you've done a bit of work on your own personal self and in your own personal team. You've got to get your own house in order, right, before you can start talking about other people's. So that fundamentally is what I believe it's given us. It's given us our own team purpose as well. So Virgin Media's purpose is about building connections that really matter, but ours, we came out, was about binding. The binding is really strong, so it's about binding our business together. It's about bringing our people together with strength, with understanding, and telling the story. You know how you have the binder of a book? So that was kind of the sort of play on bind, was around actually how we were creating the story, both our own, but also for the business, and really role modeling that. So it's honestly quite transformative, both personally, but I think every one of my team, if you ask them, would say the same thing. So, yeah.
Jess, I guess in kind of wrapping up, I mean, we're going to have people who are already cheerleaders for purpose that will be that will be totally relating to you. But what about for the economic rationalists that are going to be watching this as well? I mean, the question is going to be, yeah, okay, that's lovely, but does this drive performance? So maybe you can just talk about, as we wrap up, has this worked? What's been the effect on the business? What's been effect on things like Zoom scores and your engagement models, etc.? Through probably one of the most turbulent times in human history, certainly for business, and every business is suffering and making trade-offs. What's the performance like in Virgin Media through this year as you're getting close to wrapping the year up?
So a couple of things. I think a lot of companies have a mission, but not many companies are on a mission. And we brought momentum around really making sure we were on a mission and we knew where we were going. And therefore, we were going to make smart decisions to do the right thing along the way. And some of them were really tough. But actually, some of them we were able to do from a position of strength. Because what we found that firstly, our engagement scores are now up, oh God, I think it's 9 points since last year. It could be 11, but I'm going to go with the lower number in my head just so that I don't. Engagement scores are at 9 points, and specifically indexing in there is around our leadership team and having our people understanding our purpose, because we were very clear that for every decision that we made, we would link that back to why we existed and where we were going, because it was all part of us evolving and growing and having success and fun along the way as a business. And what that's meant is, I think for the first time in a number of years, we are hitting all of our KPIs. Our people are all swimming in the same direction. Yes, of course, there's the odd maverick, and we clearly have that. That's what makes us diverse and wonderful. It's not, we haven't hit that complete nirvana moment, but we really feel like we're together. And what that has done is it's probably brought out that extra 10, 15% in everybody. But fundamentally, from a commercial perspective, we are performing better than we have done. We're ahead of plan, and we've done that through the most unprecedented year that we've had, because we've not just done the right thing for our people, we've done the right thing for our customers as well. And that's what we set out to do, was to really make sure that we wanted to be, if we were going to land our purpose and really bring that to life, we were going to be the most recommended brand by our people and customers. So that's where we're going to. That is our North Star. So along the way, it was all about, well, hang on, what is the right thing to do? How do we get there? And then once you talked about belief and belonging. And so our people are now proud. Our eNPS is up something like 37 points. So that's our likelihood to recommend Virgin Media as a place to work is up astronomically, because suddenly our people could see us making decisions that we wouldn't have done previously to do the right thing. And quite often, as we all know, if you do the right thing, actually the commercials follow. So Richard, and actually so I think looked is like, oh, Richard had this. I've always believed in happy people equal happy customers, which means you have happy shareholders. So if you start from inside and you do the right thing for your people, and that will flow out to your customers, which in turn kind of drives that shareholder value. And that's fundamentally the recipe that we followed.
Well, that's amazing, Jess. I mean, I can't think of a better explanation of not only one of Britain's, but one of the world's most iconic brands, and understanding how it is purpose-driven, and how did it become that, and how do you sustain that, and how do you use purpose to drive and accelerate performance through turbulent times. Thank you so much, Marlon, for inviting us together. Thank you, Jess. This has been hugely inspirational for us all. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you both.